You can do anything you want. You can torture him. Ultimately, you can kill him. There are people who have suffered all the torture and those who have undergone even killing. Meaning, they have suffered even the death, but they did not reveal. They did not want to reveal. Therefore, if the will is not there, he will not say anything. So, in accomplishment of any action, the will of the person or the will of the doer is absolutely required. Purusha Tantratvam is there. In Jnanam, Purusha Tantratvam is not there. Then who decides the knowledge? Vastu Tantratvam. It is Vastu or the object of knowledge that determines the nature of knowledge, whereas it is the will of the person that determines the Kriya. This is the main difference there. And of course, knowledge takes place without any activity being involved. When your eyes are open and the flower is there in front of you, no activity needs to be done to know the flower. Knowledge takes place. Whereas, even after a will has arisen in your mind, it is necessary on your part to perform an activity to accomplish an action. Therefore, there is a will or a desire that I want to eat. The food is there in front of you and there is a desire to eat also, but then you must perform an action. You must perform appropriate activity in order to accomplish that act of eating. So act of eating or drinking or any act involves at least two elements. Of course, a lot of other elements are required, food must be there and so on and so forth, but assuming all those things are there, that it requires, food is there, I don't feel like eating, I don't want to eat. That's all. The child will not eat, the person will not eat. Why have you prepared this? I don't want to eat. That's all, And what will you do? Nothing you can do. That's how people can register their opposition or in different ways, In any way, so if the will is not there, then the act of eating does not take place. And when the will is there and food is there, then also what? Then also an act must be done. Appropriate action must be performed for the act of eating to be accomplished. Otherwise also, will is there, but his hand is not functioning. Something is not there, suppose. Maybe appropriate action must be done for the food to go into his mouth, for him to masticate or swallow, and then eating takes place. So will, Purushatan, will is required, and second is required, Kriya Sadhyatvam. In a karma, two things are required, the will of the person, and secondly, the appropriate activity in order for the karma or kriya to be accomplished. None of this is there in jnanam. In knowledge, person's will is not called for, nor when the pramana is there and prameya is there, then no action is required for the knowledge to take place. It's not that, wait a minute, let me see. Oh, let me look closely. You see the flower, you see it. Let me think whether it's flower or not. No, it doesn't require thinking. It is an object that perception takes place. You may not know that it's a flower, that's a different thing. But there is some object in front of you. When we say knowledge, we mean perception. Whether you recognize the object, etc. is a second thing. But the perception takes place. Sound is heard. You may not understand what the sound is, but it's heard, that perception takes place. Now, this is a point that is going to be made in this discussion. Says Purnanandaya, that's what Ratnaprabha says, Mana Samabhijnanam na kriya. Kriya is what? Vidhi yogya. Kriya is that which has yogyatvam, which is fit for vidhi or enjoyment. Eating also may require vidhi. Come on, eat. Or eat at 9:30. Or eat rice and things like that. Any kriya is vidhi yogya. Any kriya is fit for an injunction or an instruction. Vastu tantratva. But jnanam na vidhi yogyam. In knowledge, you cannot instruct a person, may you know this as an elephant. You can't say that. Or may you know this as a flower. Or may you know this. That instruction cannot be there in case of jnanam, because when the eyes are there, the knowledge takes place. So jnanam doesn't have vidhi yogyatvam, kriya has vidhi yogyatvam. Jnanam is not available for enjoyment or instruction, whereas karma is available fit for enjoyment or instruction. Vastu tantratvat, because jnanam is what? Vastu tantram. The nature of knowledge is determined by the object of knowledge and not by the knower. Kriti asadhyatvacha, and also In the knowledge, no karma is required. I don't have to do anything. In order to know the flower, no effort, kriti means no effort is required on my part. No will is required on my part, nor an effort is required for the knowledge to take place. Knowledge always is effortless. So that alone is called knowledge. When you think, when you visualize, when you do all those mental activities, it is not knowledge. It may be vichara, it may be meditation, it may be anything. But what is knowledge? Knowing is seeing. So Atma vara drashtavya. Atma must be seen. How seeing is an effortless thing. How seeing takes place. And so also the knowledge of Atma should take place. Knowledge means no effort is involved. And knowledge means no will is involved. When the will also subsides and the effort also subsides, then alone knowledge can take place. Until then, knowledge cannot take place in any case. Suppose you insist in your mind that this is a rose flower. Suppose a will comes into play in the knowledge of an object which is in my hand, which is a jasmine flower. Suppose there is a will that this is rose flower, or this is an elephant, or this is a pot, or this is some object. As long as that will or insistence is there, the yathartha jnanam or the true knowledge will not take place. And if there is an effort on your part, let me think, what is this? The thinking is involved or some activity is involved, so long also the knowledge is not there. You see, when you know this flower, the flower is known when your will is not there, as at the same time effort also is not there. That's the reason why moksha being of the nature of knowledge, will should not be there, effort should not be there. Effort is all culminated, will also has culminated into a situation or a state when there is no will, there is no effort. That's all. To say that, it is said there is no karma or no upasana. Because karma and upasana involves a will, also involves an activity on my part. As long as will is there, activity is there, so long knowledge cannot take place anywhere. Not only Brahma jnanam, no jnanam will take place. If you insist upon what that object should be, then you will not know the object as it is. It is an object that should insist what it is, and not you. And for the knowledge to take place, there is a complete contemplation. There is samadhi. Momentarily when you know the flower, there is effortlessness completely. In every knowledge, there is always effortlessness. As long as effort is there, so long the knowledge doesn't take place. Or so long what takes place is not knowledge. What effort will be there? What is this? I don't understand. Suppose doubt is there. Your mind is vacillating. Or an error is there. Then the knowledge is not there. What is knowledge? Knowledge is that which is free from doubt and free from error. Since doubt also involves an activity of the mind, and error also involves an activity of the mind, therefore it is said that knowledge must be free from doubt and error. And therefore the samshaya, which also is an obstacle to knowledge, must be removed by mananam, and the error or the viparita buddhi, which is also an obstacle to knowledge, must be removed by nididhyasanam, and therefore knowledge that is devoid of all the obstacles, avaranam, samshaya and viparyaya. It is that knowledge which is what is called knowledge. Where there is clarity, there is no doubt and there is no error. And such knowledge alone is called prama. Prama means valid knowledge. Knowledge which cannot be sublated, which cannot be negated, which cannot be falsified or improved upon or anything. So this is flower or this is an object. That's all. You cannot change that knowledge, cannot improve upon that, and therefore, if you have a conclusion, it can be improved upon. You have a conclusion, this is a rose flower. That is a Buddhist conclusion. That can be changed. But then, when the eyes are open and the object is in front of you, the perception takes place. And in that perception, there is no will involved and there is no effort involved. So every knowledge involves, there is an absence of will and effort. And also an absence of vagueness, absence of doubt, absence of error. It is vagueness, doubt or error which always keeps the mind uneasy. When there is doubt in your mind, I am uncomfortable. When there is vagueness, there is uneasiness. Uneasiness also is an activity, brings about a strain. Doubt also brings about a strain. Therefore, vagueness, doubt, nothing is there in the knowledge even that alone will be real knowledge, clean knowledge, neat knowledge, will be devoid of any vagueness or any doubt or error. As long as vagueness is there, as long as doubt is there, as long as error is there, the kruti sadhyatum, some karma will remain, because mind is not resolved. Only if the mind is resolved completely, completely content, completely happy, completely abiding, then alone there is no activity. So mind is resolved. Here also, if I have a doubt, what is this flower? What is it called? I don't remember the word jasmine. Something happens, then mind is in tension, mind is not at ease. But mind is completely at ease, and then alone the knowledge is there. And that's the reason why, to bring mind to completely at ease, completely relaxed, there is no doubt, no vagueness, no error, no sankalpa, no activity, nothing. Then the mind is free from, not that there is no mind, mind is there, alert and alive and conscious, but free from any anxiety or any kind of a strain. It is completely relaxed. It is this frame of mind that is required for any knowledge, and so much so for the knowledge of the self. And with reference to that frame of mind, it is said, the karma does not have an entry there. Karma in terms of, if the personal will is there, that frame of mind is not conducive to knowledge. Or karma in terms of some other activity of accomplishment is there, again that frame of mind is not conducive to knowledge. Any knowledge takes place in the mind which is devoid of any kind of an anxiety, any kind of a will, any kind of an activity. So manasam api jnanam, no doubt knowledge is manasam, also is a state of mind. Na vidiyogya kriya, still it is not kriya because na vidiyogya, it is not a product of injunction. Vastu tantratvat, because the vastu or the object of knowledge that determines the nature of knowledge. Kriti asadhyatvat, and that the knowledge is accomplished without any activity, either on the part of the knower or on anybody else's part. No activity is involved in the knowledge and no will is involved in the knowledge. These are the two characteristics or peculiarities of knowledge which distinguishes knowledge from karma. That's the point that is made. If you want to read the same thing in a technical language, says Purnanandya, yo vidyartha sa kriti sadhyatva vishishtaha. Yo vidyartha. Vidyartha means kriya. That karma or action, which is vidyartha. Sa kriti sadhyatva vishishtaha. Action is that which is characterized by kruti sadhyatva. Kruti sadhyatva means sadhyatva attainment by kruti, by action. So action is that which is characterized by being attained as a result of an activity, and it is vidyartha. Also, it is something that is available or where vidhi has its applicability. Tatha cha jnanasya kruti asadhyatvam. That na, if it is na is there, then kruti sadhyatvam na, or jnanasya kruti asadhyatvam, one of whatever it is. Jnanasya kriti asadhyatvam. Meaning jnana is not available. So either you should remove that na or you should remove that whatever. So jnana is not kriti sadhyam, not attained as a result of kriti, karma. Why? Vidyarthatva ayogat. So it doesn't enjoy vidyarthatvam. It cannot be enjoined. Na vidiyogya kriyatvam iti bhavaha. Meaning jnanam is not a kriya, which is vidiyogya, meaning which is subject to any vidhi or any injunction. Meaning not subject to the will of the person. As we said, where is vidhi involved? Vidhi or injunction is involved in person's will. Because person has a will, therefore we have to say do this. Because person may not do it, or person may do it in some way, then we have to say do it and do it this way. That's how the vidhi comes. So karma, because the person has a freedom, therefore karma always is subject to vidhi or injunction. In knowledge, person does not have freedom, therefore the vidhi does not have any application there. So Bhashyakara says this, na vailakshanyat. So na has all this in it, what all we discussed. No, because vailakshanyat. Because there is a great distinction between Kriya and Jnanam. Vailakshanyam prapanchayati. Bhashyakara himself explains what is Vailakshanyam, or what is that distinction between the Kriya and the Jnanam. Vailakshanyam is bhedam ityartha. There is a distinction between the two. Says Bhashyakara, Kriya hi nama sa yatra vastu swarupa nirapeksha eva chodyate purusha chitta vyaparadhina cha. Kriya hi nama, what is meant by action is being defined here by Bhashyakara. Yatra vastu swarupa nirapeksha eva chodyate. Kriya is chodyate, enjoined. Vastu swarupa nirapeksha. Nirapeksha means which is independent of vastu swarupa, independent of the object of action. So kriya or action does not depend upon the object of action. What that thing is, whether Agnihotra or Jyotishtama, what it is. Or in this case, when you are talking upasana, what is the nature of devata that you are meditating upon? Or the actual devata, in fact, is not the one who governs the act of meditation. Suppose we are talking about the act of meditation upon a devata. Who governs the nature of meditation? Not the devata. Shuklam varadharam vishnum shashivarnam chaturbhujam prasannavadanam dhyayet sarvavighnopashante. One should meditate upon prasannavadanam, one with a pleasant face. Shuklam varadharam, one who is wearing the white garments. Shashivarnam, who is shining, whose countenance is like Shashi or the moon. Chaturbhujam, having 4 arms. Vishnum, all pervasive. One may, or Vishnu such as this, one may meditate upon this devata. Now you meditate upon that. Who will determine the nature of meditation? Is it the devata, Ganesha in this case? Is he the one who will determine what my meditation nature will? That will be fantastic. We wish very much, but it is no. Everyone meditates upon Ganesha in their own way. The same verse is there. Even then, the nature of meditation is different with different persons, because it is not that upasya devata or the vastu swarupa, not the true nature, that not Ganesha himself as he is who decides how I meditate upon him. It is I alone who is the determining factor in the nature of meditation. Vastu swarupa nirapeksha eva. I may very well meditate upon Ganesha, which the meditation may have nothing to do with Ganesha also. I don't know, it's possible. You may have your own notion about a devata, or some, and then therefore it's possible that the meditation that I perform may be different from what the devata really is. It may have 4 arms, it may have 8 arms, 10 arms, and all kinds of things. I may meditate upon something else. And so, vastu nirapeksha eva, vastu swarupa nirapeksha eva. The kriya is that which is independent of the true nature of the vastu or the object. Chodyate, that is what being enjoined, that you meditate, alright, but the meditation is determined by the meditator. Purusha chitta vyapara adhina cha. And also it is, so Purusha chitta vyapara adhina. It is determined, it is dependent upon the vyapara or activity of the mind of this person. So these are the 2 characteristics of the kriya. That one is vidiyogya, chodyate. Kriya is that which is after the instruction, either from without or within. And secondly, the way it is performed it depends upon the will of the person. Yatra vishe tat anapeksha eva ya chodyate tatra sahi kriya iti yojana. Yatra vishe, with reference to a particular object, tat anapeksha eva, without aksha or dependence upon that object, that stands for vishaya. Ya chodyate, that kriya that is enjoined. For example, I say bring water. No act of bringing water has no relationship with water in that sense. Bringing water is an action that is enjoined, which has no relationship with water as such. Bringing is an act. So bringing doesn't depend upon water. I can bring something else also. So bringing is an action independent of what I bring. Whether I bring water, or I bring food, or I bring fruits, or what I bring. Bringing is an action independent of the object that is brought. So Vastu Swarupa Niripeksha, or meditate upon the Devata. That meditation is independent of the Devata, because I can meditate upon any Devata. It is not that when I meditate that the meditation must take place only of a certain kind. I can meditate on any Devata that I like, and therefore act of meditation is independent of what I meditate upon. Vastu Niripeksha eva. So the action doesn't have a dependence upon the object of action. So what I bring doesn't depend upon the object that is brought. Bringing is an action, meditating is an action, eating is an action, all independent of the object involved there. Because I can eat anything or what it is, and therefore eating doesn't depend upon it is not determined by the object, that's all. It is not laddu that determines whether I eat or not. Eating takes place at laddu or rice or what it is. So vastu niripeksha eva sachodhyate. And purusha chitta vyapara adhina cha. And then the way the action is performed is going to be determined by the person who performs the action and also not by the object. So yatra vishaye tat anapeksha eva ya chodhyate. In case of any object, the kriya that is enjoined without any dependence upon the object of action, tatra sa kriya. So tat anapeksha and chodhyate, tatra sa kriya iti yojana. So with reference to that object, that is called kriya. That is how that vakya should be read. Kriya hinamasa yatra vastu nirapeksha eva chodhyate. And then purusha chitta vyapara adhina cha. Says the Purnanandiya, Samanya Vyapti Pratibadakam Bhashyam Yojayati. Yatra, Bhashyakara himself gives a Vyapti. Gives there a rule which is involved in case of Kriya. Chodyate iti Chodanaya Utpadyate. Chodyate means Chodanaya, meaning the Kriya that results the Kriya that takes place as a result of an instruction. Bring water. Then the act of water bringing takes place. So Kriya is that which takes place as a result of an enjoyment. Always. Bring water. Bring this. Do that. This is how they look upon the Kriya. That somebody always prompts me. So action is that which is the result of a prompting. From within or without. Knowledge is not a result of prompting. It does not involve any prompting from within or without. So knowledge, Kriya is a result. Chodanaya utpadyate is that which takes place as a result of a prompting or a directive. Yatra vishayavastu anapekshatve sati kriti sadhyatvam tatra kriyatvam. Where vishayavastu anapekshatve sati kriti sadhyatvam. This is an important thing which will have to be discussed tomorrow. Vishayavastu anapekshatve sati. Where there is no apeksha or dependence or relation with or dependence upon the vastu vishaya, the object, and kriti sadhyatvam is also there. It is accomplished as a result of activity. This is called kriya. So kriya is that which is performed regardless of the object of the thing, and kriya is that which is accomplished as a result of an activity. So kriya does not depend upon the object involved in the kriya, and the kriya also can be accomplished only when some willful activity is done. The two characteristics of kriya. Bringing, going is a kriya. Doesn't depend upon where I go. Going is not determined by where I go. You see, kriya is that which takes place irrespective of what the object of kriya is. Eating is a kriya, doesn't depend upon the object. I can accomplish eating regardless of what that object is. I can perform the act of going regardless of where I go. I can perform the act of speaking regardless of what is spoken. So what is spoken, speaking is an act that can take place without any dependence upon, with dependence upon what is spoken. So act of speaking is not determined by what is spoken. Act of going is not determined by the place where I go. Act of eating is not determined by the object which I eat. Because act of eating is independent of what is eaten. Act of going is independent of the place where I go. or act of any act, therefore, is independent upon the karma or the object involved in action. Oh, you say, how can you say that? How can you go to a place unless you are going to a place? So place also has something to do with the going. It has to do with the going. But going is independent of that place. It's not that when I go to one place only, I go anywhere. It's not that when I eat a given thing only, I eat anything. It's not that when I speak a given thing alone, I speak anything. So speaking is an act independent of what is spoken. That's what is meant by Vishaya Vastu Anapekshatve Sati. And the speaking is an action that can accomplish only by Kriya, by some effort. So an effort is involved in accomplishment of a Kriya, and the Kriya is performed independent of the object involved in Kriya. So these two things should be understood with reference to Kriya. These two aspects are what distinguish a Kriya from Jnanam. That's the point that is being made here. We will continue further. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sūtra Bhashya Krutau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah. Ishvaro Gururatmedi Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Atha Om Atha Om Atha Tu Samanvayat 166. Nanu Jnanam Nama Manasi Kriya Na Vailakshanyar Kriyahinama Sa Yatra Vastu Swarupa Nirpekshaiva Chodyate Purusha Chitta Vyaparadhina Cha. First of all, what is Kriya? Kriya hinama yatra vastu swarupa nirpekshayeva chodyate. Chodyate chodanaya utpadyate. Kriya is born. Without vastu swarupa nirpekshayeva, without any apeksha or dependence upon the vastu swarupa. Meaning, it doesn't matter what is the object upon which that kriya is performed. As we discussed yesterday, kriya of eating. So, eating is a kriya or karma. It is not derived on account of what is the object of kriya. Meaning, it is true that when I eat, the object which I eat is important, and without that the act of eating cannot be accomplished. But the act of eating is not determined by the object that I eat. That I going is an act. Act of going is not determined by the place which I reach, which is called the vastu swarupa vastu or the karma. So it is not the object of activity which determines the activity. What determines the activity? Chodana. Some kind of a prompting, some kind of a directive, or some kind of an impelling factor, either outwardly or inwardly. Somebody says, go there. It is that. It is not the vastu that determines that I go there. It is not the place that determines. It is not the food that determines that I eat. Some other chodana, some other prompting that I am hungry, so eat food. That somebody says you eat food, or somebody within says you eat food, and that is what brings about the act of eating. So what originates the act of eating, or any act, is not the object which is involved in the action, but some other factor. So it is not the place that says that I should go there. It is someone else that tells me go there, or something within me that tells me go there. Somebody may say, no, the objects are attracting you, but no, objects create in me again a desire to acquire them. So it is a desire to acquire them that prompts me to do something. So idea is chodana, meaning some kind of an impelling factor, some directive coming from within or without, that is upon which the kriya or the act is dependent. Act does not depend upon, or act is not derived from the object involved in action, but it is derived from a chodana, derived from an impelling factor. This is an important thing. It contrasts itself from the knowledge which is determined by the vastu. So this is the object of knowledge, and that is determined by the knowledge of the object is determined by the object, whereas the action pertaining to an object is not determined by the object, it does not originate from that object. Here the knowledge originates from the object. The object, namely flower here, is the source of the knowledge or perception of flower, whereas the object in that case is not the source of kriya. So this difference should be understood. So, yatra vishaye tad anapeksha evaya chodyate. With reference to any object, regardless of that object, that which is enjoined is called kriya. Meaning that kriya is originated from the chodana and not from the vishaya. So, vastat anapeksha evaya chodyate tatra sahi kriya. Otherwise, if something is generated on account of the object, then it would be called knowledge. If suppose something is originated by the object, then that would not be called kriya, it would be called perhaps knowledge. But which is generated not because of the object, but because of a factor other than the object, then in that is called kriya. Because both are manasa, both of them are mental acts. Knowledge also is a modification of mind, and kriya also involves a mental activity in terms of doing or doership, etc. So in what manner are these mental activities differentiated? When you want to differentiate knowledge from the action, when both of them have involvement with the mind, or in both of which mind is involved, in what way is the activity of the mind different? In case of kriya, that activity of the mind is not originated from or compelled by or determined by the object of the kriya, whereas in case of knowledge, that modification that takes place in the mind is determined by the object. This is an important thing. Purusha chitta vyaparadhina cha. And also kriya is not only there is a prompting from a thing other than the object, Purusha chitta vyaparadhina cha. Also it is dependent upon the Purusha chitta vyapara. So it is Purusha tantra, meaning it also is dependent upon the will of the person. Now, so two factors are involved for accomplishment of an activity. Number one, a chodana or an impelling factor is involved, and secondly, the will of the person also is involved. There may be an impelling factor and still a person may not do. But a person will never do something unless there is an impelling factor from without or within. Any act is performed when there is some prompting from a desire, from something which prompts me to do, and secondly, my own will also is involved, because I have the freedom to choose as to whether to perform the action or not, and if to perform the action, how to perform the action also is determined by the one who acts. There are two important things. In knowledge, none of these factors is. It is not the person who chooses that a given knowledge be of this form, nor is a knowledge generated because someone says that may you know it in this manner, outside or inside. So these two factors are not there, and then it's not Purusha Tantratvam, there Vastu Tantratvam is there, and there is no kriya involved in case of knowledge also, no effort is involved, whereas here the personal effort is involved. So Purnanandaya says in the second line, Yatra Vishaya Vastu Anapekshatve Sati Kriti Sadhyatvam Tatra Kriyatvam is Samanya Vyaptihi. Yatra Vishaya Vastu Anapekshatve Sati Kriti Sadhyatvam. Kriti Sadhyatvam, that which is accomplished as a result of an effort. That which is accomplished as a result of an effort, Kriti. And also further, Vishaya Vastu Anapekshatve Sati, where there is no apeksha or dependence upon the vastu that is involved, tatra kriyatvam. So where these two things are there, we say that kriya or act is necessarily there. It is samanya vyapti. This is a general rule. Tam upapadayan. This is shown by upapatti, meaning by reason. Tasyam drishtanta pratibadakam bhashyam avatarayati. So this vyapti is stated by Bhashyakara in a way by giving the drishtanta, giving an illustration also. Drishtanta pratibadakam bhashyam avatarayati. Vyapti is given, then drishtanta is given Bhashyakara. So kriyahinam sa yatra vastu nirapekshaya vachodyate purusha chitta tantra purusha chitta vyaparadhina cha. This represents vyapti, which expressed by Purnananda is yatra vastu vishayanapekshyatvasri kriti sadhyatvam tatra kriyatvam. So this is an explanation of that statement. So whenever we present that rule, drishtanta also is to be given. And so yatha, Bhashyakara says further, yatha yasyai devatayai havirgrahitam syad tam manasadhyayed vashatkarishyan iti sandhyam manasadhyayed iti cha evamadishu dhyanam chintanam yadyapi manasam tathapi purushena kartum akartum anyatha va kartum shakyam purushatantratvad. Yatha, to illustrate, yasyai devatayai, for which devata havihi grahitam syat. So this is the fourth case, so tadarthe chaturthi. So referring to which devata, for the purpose of which devata havihi grahitam syat. So says grahitam advaryuna iti sheshaha. So when a yaga is performed, usually the offering is made by the priest of Yajurveda. It's called advaryu. And the devata is invoked by the priest of Rigveda. It's called hota. So yasya devatayai havihi grahitam syad advaryuna. The devata addressing which or addressing whom, the advaryu, that priest, takes the havi. He is going to offer. But while the havi or the oblation is offered, at that time the devata is to be invoked. And invoking that devata, you offer the oblation. So devata is invoked by chanting the mantra by the hota, by the priest of the Rigveda. At that time, tatam manasadhyaye, that devata must be meditated upon mentally. Vashat karishyan. So while the ahuti is being offered, they utter these some words, vashat, etc. So different. Swaha, swaha deva havirdane, shraushat, vaushat, vashat, swadha. So these are the kind of utterances that they make. Swaha, when they make an offering, swaha. Or shraushat, vaushat, vashat, swadha. So one or the other of these utterances are made while making an offering to the devata. This is the. So while doing this, while this vashat karishyan, when the hota or the priest is about to utter vashat, at that time, tam manasadhyayet, the devata must be mentally meditated upon, obviously mentally. So advaryuhu yam devatam uddishya havir grunadi, tam devatam ayam hota vashat karishyan, vashatkaraya udyukta sandhyayet. So while this hota is about to utter this vashat, at that time he should meditate upon that devata, addressing which the advaryu has picked up the havish. Manasa shastriyam devatamurtim samyak anusandhaya. That devatamurti is shastriya. Shastra tells you what that devatamurti is. So in the Vedas also there are description of devatas in words. And so it is said that shastriyam devatamurtim. So that form of the devata which is described in the Shastra. Samyak anusandhaya, that should be very well visualized. Paschat vashat kuryat. So meditating upon that devata, you should say vashat. So this is how it is. So when you are offering the ahuti, this must be in a particular case. While offering, very often they only say that you do not require to separately meditate upon devatas, because by the very utterance of the words, the devatas are there. So devata's form is only of the nature of shabda. So when you utter the words, devatas are there. This is how also they believe. But here in this case, a specific form of devata also is given in several cases. So it says, while you are offering this, then at that time in your mind, that devata must be visualized. And that is how, so, saksha devatat devatam prinati, pratyaksha devatam yajati iti. Evam sati, when you do this, sakshadeva pratyaksheneva devatam tarpayati, then that devata immediately and directly gets satisfied, because you have visualized that devata in your mind. न केवलम तृप्त्यर्थमेव देवतायाः साक्षात्कारः किंतु प्रत्यक्षात् प्रत्यक्षेणैव देवतां यजति याग काले प्रत्यक्षेण पश्यति इत्यर्थः, meaning that priest at that time sees that devata in front of himself in the mind. So this is manasa pratyaksham, in the mind he sees. The idea is that this is called dhyanam. So this dhyanam, where according to the form that is given in the shastra, you meditate. And then there is for dhyanam also, there is certain stipulation as to how to do it, when to do it, all stipulations are there. So when should you meditate on that devata? Vashat karishyan, just before utterance of this word, this mantra vashat, may you meditate upon that devata when the havihi has been held by that adhvaryu. So whenever this injunction is there are always stipulations that you should meditate at this time, in this manner, and so forth and so on. So chodana is involved there. So dhyayet, manasa dhyayet, there is an instruction there. So chodana is involved. And also this person meditates. And purusha chitta vyaparadhina cha, this dhyanam also is dependent upon the purusha chitta vyapara, meaning upon the mental effort of this person, this dhyanam is dependent. Because if he does not make an effort, he cannot meditate. For knowledge, even if he does not make an effort, knowledge takes place. When he opens the eyes, knowledge takes place. No effort is required. But if you want to meditate on devata or meditate on something, in which case your own effort is required. In your own mind, you should visualize that devata or visualize that form. So the personal effort is required. At the same time, some chodana is also required. Somebody says, may you meditate upon Lord Shiva or Lord Ganesha or whatever, or your own mind says in some way, because some result is to be accomplished. In knowledge, no result is to be accomplished or no result gets accomplished. Just because you know this is a flower, that's all. That's the result. Nothing happens. Nothing happens in the sense that nothing happens to you, nothing happens to flower, nothing happens to anything. So it is not born of kriya, nor does it generate kriya. Neither is knowledge born of action, nor does it give rise to action. Whereas karma is born of action and further give rise to action. Regardless, so these are the differences, even though, so we should know what is called knowledge. Or when do we know knowledge has taken place? Where no self-effort is involved, or where no outside injunction or outside prompting force is involved, that which takes place without a self-effort or without any prompting from outside, this kind of a mental mode will be called knowledge. Whereas a mental mode that has taken place because of a chodana as well as because of a self-effort, that mental mode would be called kriya. So this is how knowledge also is mental and action also is mental, but then the modes are different, and this is how they are distinguished. So understand, knowledge also takes place in the mind. Even though people talk of mindlessness and thoughtlessness, etc., how can knowledge take place without thought, So there is some fascination about transcending everything, and then without thoughts, etc. You can take drugs and you can sleep, whatever you want to do, if you want to totally simply eliminate thoughts. But that is an act again, you see. But knowledge is something that is not an elimination of thought, because knowledge itself is thought form. That's why they call it jnana vritti. there is a direct apprehension of what the nature of the thing is. Otherwise, if you transcend everything, then how are you going to know? So the transcending is fine. There is nothing, it's a wonderful thing to be able to transcend all the thoughts and enjoy a state of total tranquility. That's okay. But that tranquility doesn't reveal anything for you. What reveals the nature of thing is jnana vritti. The vritti reveals, it eliminates ignorance. So here, then sandhyam manasadhyayet. One should in the mind meditate or meditate upon this devata identified with sandhya. So Vishaya Vastu, that so said here, Ratnaprabha, Vishaya Vastu anapeksha kriti sadhya chakriya idiyata drushtantamaha. Vishaya Vastu anapeksha, that kriya doesn't have apeksha, but is not derived from the nature of Vastu. Kriti sadhya cha, on the other hand, is derived from an effort. So where it is not, it is definitely derived not from the Vastu, whereas it is derived from an effort. This is called kriya. These two conditions are required, which Purnanandi explains here. Vishaya vastu anapeksha means Vishaya ajanya, not brought about by Vishaya or object in case of kriya. Says now Purnanandi, Anumityadau Vishayasya ahetutvat tadajanye tasmin vyabhicharavaranaaya krutijanyatva dalam. You have to see the hetu that is given here is Vishaya vastu anapekshatve sadi kruti sadhyat. Sadhyatvad. Kruti sadhyatvad because it is accomplished as a result of an effort. Also, not only accomplished as a result of an effort, but Vishaya vastu anapekshatve sati, where that effort is not derived from the nature of vastu. So he explains here that if both these aspects were not given in hetu, then there would be vyabhichara. Then some other things would have been included. Suppose you did only said vastu vishaya vastu anapekshatvat kriyatvam. In that case, anumiti or anumanam also, inference, would also be included as kriya. Inference is actually knowledge. Inference is knowledge. When you see the smoke and the knowledge of fire takes place in your mind, it is called valid knowledge. And so knowledge is not kriya. However, inference is derived without dependence upon the vastu, namely fire. So in your mind, the knowledge of fire takes place without perception of fire. This is inference. You perceive smoke, and what takes place in your mind is the knowledge of fire. So that knowledge of fire is not derived from or is not generated by the fire itself. So your definition here, that kriya is that which is not derived from the vastu, that would include inference also, because inferential knowledge is not derived from vastu. Inferential knowledge also is a mental mode and is not derived from vastu, namely fire, so that also would be classified as kriya. He says, no, kriti sadhyatvat. Second is necessary. That inference takes place. You don't have any effort. Inference also being knowledge, no personal effort is required for the knowledge of fire to take place. As soon as you see smoke, then you know that wherever smoke is, fire must be there. So as soon as you see smoke, on account of that vyapti or general rule, immediately in your mind, the knowledge of fire takes place. There, no self-effort is required. Therefore, inference is not called kriya because it doesn't have both of these conditions. It is true that inference is not dependent upon the vastu, namely fire. However, inference is not born as a result of an effort. Therefore, anumiti is not called kriya. Otherwise, if you had just said vishaya vastu anapekshatvat, then anumiti also, there will be vyabhichara. Of this vyapti, that would also include anumiti. To exclude anumanam, they have added kruti sadhyatvam. And then, so tasmin vyabhichara varanaya, to exclude this anumiti from this. Or this vyapti would cover anumiti. To prevent that, kruti janyatva dalam means kruti sadhyatva dalam. Dalam means that element, that part. That kruti sadhyatvam, that part is there to exclude anumiti from this. Kruti sadhya apurve vivichar varanaya vishaya vastun dalam. There is another thing. What we call apurva. Apurva means when you perform an action, then a karma phala is produced. Apurva is produced. So papa or punya, some subtle effect is produced when you perform an action. It's called adrushta or apurva. That apurva, even yaga also is called apurva. Even swarga also is called apurva. So when you perform a certain yaga, then it creates, that particular performance creates what we call a subtle effect, and that gives rise to swarga at a given time and place. So word apurva can include swarga also, because so that also takes place as a result of kruti. Or yaga also can be called apurva. Or that punya papa also can be called, punya can be also called apurva. So kruti apurva is kruti sadhyam. Even yaga also, like jyotishtoma, also is accomplished as a result of effort. Or the punya that is generated as a result of performance of jyotishtoma also is a result of kriya. Or the swarga that you attain is also a result of kriya. You see? So kruti sadhyatvam, or being accomplished as a result of an effort, is there in swarga or in punya or in yaga. And so if you had just said kruti sadhya kriya, kriya is that which is accomplished by kruti or effort, then all this swarga and punya and yaga, all of them would be classified as, would be included as kriya. To exclude them, it is said vishaya vastu anapekshatve sati, where there is no apeksha upon the vishaya. So apurva is generated as a result of the vastu. If you perform a particular yaga, then a particular apurva is generated. And therefore, apurva very much depends upon the vastu. Even though it is kruti sadhyam, it is dependent upon vastu. Therefore, vastu swarupa nirapekshatvam is not there in apurva. Therefore, apurva is not included as kriya. Otherwise, if you had just said kruti sadhyatvat, then apurva would be included. So what is the result that you get? If result is called apurva, then result very much depends upon the karma that you perform. So in the result there is kruti sadhyatvam, result is always accomplished by a particular karma. And therefore, so apurvasya upasana rupa vishaya janyatvena tad ajanyatva bhavat na vyabhichara. Apurvasya upasana rupa vishaya janyatvena. When you perform an upasana, then apurva in terms of an unseen effect takes place or the result takes place. So apurva is that which is born as a result of upasana. So here upasana is called vishaya. Upasana rupa vishaya janyatvena. So upasana is a particular kind of mental activity, and that is what brings about apurva. So it is born, here upasana itself becomes vishaya. Tat ajanyatva abhavat. And so, sorry, it should be made as upasana actually. Upadana should be changed to upasana. Or upadana rupa vishaya janmatvena. That also will be okay. Upadana means, suppose there is a yaga, then various things that you require in order to accomplish the yaga, all of that are involved in bringing about a yaga. And so yaga, if it is called apurva, that also will depend upon the vishaya which makes up that yaga. That should also be okay. Tat ajanyatva bhava. So in apurva, vishaya ajanyatva bhava, meaning it is vishaya janya, and so that condition, that it should not be born of vishaya, that condition is not satisfied in case of apurva, and therefore na vyabhichara. So this vyapti does not include, is not extended to apurva. Therefore this vyapti doesn't have an exception with reference to apurva. So this is how it is necessary. When you give a definition or when you show a rule, you must make sure that the rule is not too general or not too restrictive. The rule includes what you want to include, doesn't include too much, and is not very restrictive. Otherwise they'll find loopholes. Whenever they give rules in income tax, sales tax, anything, what is called a loophole? There is a vyapti vyabhichara. It includes too much or it does not include enough. And then those people say, okay, this is the rule, so we'll do it this way, and somehow they'll find something. That a loophole is nothing but a legal thing. Because the rule that they gave was not restrictive enough, was too general, or it was too restrictive, therefore this rule doesn't apply here, we will say, because there are some exceptional conditions you find. So that is how the lawyers are there, that is their job. So lawyers are all logicians in that sense, that there are vyaptis, the rules are there. Where to find is the dosha. The ati vyapti dosha, avyapti dosha, and so forth. Ati vyapti is including too much, avyapti is not including enough. And of course, you cannot have such a rule that doesn't include anything. Sometimes you can even say which doesn't include the very opposite. But then, so this dosha should not be there in definitions. That is why this kind of an examination. But anyway, next one is upasanayaha apurva. That's why we should say upadana should be upasana, because it says upasanayaha apurva vishayatvam nama apurva hetu krita vishayatvam iti purastaduktam iti vijnayam. So upasanayaha apurva, how can upasana be the vishaya? So upasanayaha apurva vishayatvam nama apurva hetu krita vishayatvam. So any effort that brings about apurva, that effort makes the effort has its vishaya in upasana. So apurva is born as a result of effort, which effort has its vishaya as upasana, and that's how we say that upasana becomes the effort. Upasana becomes vishaya for generation of apurva. Anyway, that's all by the way, it's immaterial as far as this discussion is concerned. So vashat karishan niti hetau. Hetu means this is this, we said earlier, in sense of lakshana and hetu, where this present participle is there, shatru and shanaja pratyaya. So vashat karishan in the sense of hetu, vashat karishan tam devatam dhyaye. It is not the lakshana of the person, but hetu, vashat, the utterance of vashat becomes a hetu for meditation of that devata. At that time it should be done. And therefore, utterance of that vashat becomes the occasion for meditation upon that devata. Vakyantramah sandhyamiti. So says Ratnaprabha, vashat karishan na hota sandhyam devatam iti chayvamadi vakyeshu yatha yadrushi dhyanakriya vastunapeksha pumstantra. That should be not puntantra, pumstantra. So actually pums it should be. Tantra cha chodyate tadrushi kriya ityartha. Vashat karishan hota and sandhyam devatam iti chaivam adishu adivakyeshu. In such statements, yatha yadrushi dhanakriya, the kind of dhanakriya is involved. Dhanakriya means that mental activity in terms of meditation is involved. Vastu anapeksha. See how in meditation upon the devata or upon that sandhya, how vastu anapeksha. How otherwise if that devata determines meditation, then I will find myself meditating all the time. Or that everyone would meditate exactly the same way, but it's not so. It is not the devata that prompts a meditation, but then it is some other thing like this. Here, dhyaye, this chodana is what brings about meditation. So vastuanapeksha means what? Vastuajanya, that's all. It's not born of vastuajanya. Pumstantracha, and then it depends upon the will of the person. Cha chodyate tadrushi kriya. So wherever this happens, tadrushi, that is called kriya. So wherever these conditions are there, that mental mode is called kriya. Ityartha. So dhyane vishaya vastuna kriti sadhyatvam kriyatvam cha vidyate divyaptim parishkarodi. So here Ratnaprabha explained how dhyanam also is a kriya. Vashyakara gave here the illustration of dhyanam, showing that dhyanam is kriya. Why is it so? Because chodana is involved, and because purusha vyapara is involved, and because vastu anapeksha, also vastu ajanyatvam is there, purusha tantratvam is there, and then chodana ajanyatvam is there. Therefore, dhyanam also is called kriya. So the rule that we gave very well applies to dhyanam. So dhyanam is called kriya. It is a mental act. Then says Ratnaprabha further, dhyanavi manasatvat jnanavata na kriya. Okay. Another way you can see. Dhyanavi na kriya manasatvat. So here you proved that dhyanam is kriya because kruti sadhyatvat vastu nirapekshatvat. He just puts it another way. We say that meditation also is not an act. Because meditation is a mental mode, and knowledge also is a mental mode. In both of them, manasatvam, meaning being mental, being common. So you can give this another hetu. Manasatvat dhyanam na kriya. Dhyanam is not an action because it is mental, just as jnanam. So jnanam also, jnanavat. Jnanam becomes a drishtanta there. So jnanavat, just as knowledge, even though it is a mental mode, is not an act. So also dhyanam being a mental mode also is not an act. This is how he just shankare. So dhyanavi manasatvat jnanavat na kriya ityatah aha dhyanam ityadina. Says dhyanam na kriya manasatvat jnanavat iti prayoga. Says Purnanandya. So he says dhyanam na kriya. The Purva Pakshi says that dhyana or meditation is not a kriya. How? Why? Manasatvat. Because it is mental mode. How? Jnanavat. Just as jnanam also is mental, then this is just presenting inference in a different way, and we have to find the vibhichara in this inference, or upadhi in this case. So Bhashyakara says, dhyanam chintanam yadyapi manasam. Even though, Bhashyakara said, so even though meditation is manasam chintanam, dhyanam is chintanam. It involves the visualization or thinking, and definitely it is manasam. Tathapi purushena kartum akartum anyatha kartum va kartum anyatha va kartum shakyam. Even then, in case of dhyana or meditation, the person has the choice or the freedom to do it or not do it, or do it differently. In case of knowledge, person does not have a choice. Your eyes are open, the microphone is in front of you, you see it. Your ears are open, the words are there, you hear them. And therefore, as far as the perception of knowledge is concerned, the person or the individual does not have the freedom. Whereas in case of meditation, did you meditate this morning? I didn't do it. Why? I was not in a mood. I didn't get up early enough. I was too busy. How very often these things, why do we have so much difficulty in meditation and in japa and all these things? Because the personal will is involved and effort also is involved. Will is there when there is mood. I'm not in a mood, therefore I didn't feel like doing it. I was too sleepy. I didn't get up early enough. Or I had something else to do. Or whatever. So why should I do? Also. So in case of meditation or worship and all these questions are involved. Why? Because self-effort is involved. Whereas, hey, did you hear that song in the morning? Did you hear that siren in the morning? Yes, I heard. Even whether I have mood or not, whether I want or not, whether I like or not, whether I am busy or not, the siren which blows there, I will hear because no effort is involved. Whether to blow siren or not, that will be an action because my effort is involved. But to hear the siren or not is not dependent upon me. So understand, that is why we have so much difficulty or whatever there is with reference to meditation, etc. because self-effort is involved there. And sometimes you are so enthusiastic and do a lot of things. Later on, whatever the reason, sometimes people then get, Swami, I did this. I chanted Hanuman Chalisa 100 times every day for 100 days and nothing happened. I have stopped it. Okay. Therefore, that manasam, because personal effort is involved, therefore you can stop it also. Akartum shakyam. Or, Shri Guru, like that, anyatha va akartum shakyam. So you can chant it as you like. Because you have, and Hanumanji, suppose you want to meditate. People may meditate differently. Some people will meditate with Hanumanji sitting there with Gada. Some people will meditate with Hanumanji singing bhajans. Some people may meditate Hanumanji flying there. You see, you have different pictures of Hanumanji, you see. They are all products of meditation. So even meditation upon Hanumanji also is not decided by Hanumanji, it is decided by you as to what you want to meditate upon. Anyway. But the idea is that meditation is independent of the object. Otherwise Hanumanji says, you cannot meditate upon me like this. I am sitting here, meditate that way. I said, sorry Hanumanji, I like your form where you are flying. Then what will you do? Ganesha cannot decide, I like dancing Ganesha. What will you do? And that is how. Anyway, the dhyanam is determined not by the vastu, and it is determined by my own effort. And so, this is the thing here. Dhyanam chintanam yadyapi manasam tathapi So, tathapi kriya eva iti sheshaha, says Ratnabhava. So, after tathapi, you should add kriya eva in parenthesis. So, dhyanam chintanam yadyapi manasam, tathapi kriya eva. Even then, that dhyam is kriya alone. It is only kriya because purushatantratvat. What is purushatantratvam? Purushene kartum akartum anyatha va kartum shakyam. Because a person may do it, he may not do it, or may do it by as he pleases. Purushatantratvat, because it is dependent upon the will of the person. Kruti sadhyatvam upadhiti bhavaha. So you should add this. That jnanam is na kriya. Jnanam na kriya. Kruti asadhyatvat. So manasatve sati kruti asadhyatvat or kruti sadhyatve sati manasatvat. So knowledge also is mental thing. Meditation also is mental thing. But there is a difference. What is it? One is kruti sadhyam. Meaning meditation is a result of accomplished by an effort. Knowledge is not kruti sadhyam, is not accomplished by an effort. This is the difference. Upadhi. This is a distinguishing factor, which even though there are similarities between knowledge and dhyanam, this distinction is there. Says dhyanam na kriya, says Purnanandi again, dhyanam na kriya, na should be added there. Dhyanam na kriya, manasatvad anumane, kruti asadhyatvam upadhi. Kruti asadhyatvam means that specific condition is there. Therefore, this na kriya, this sadhya is not there. So, drishtande sadhya vyapakatvat, pakshe sadhana avyapakatvat cha. Drishtande means jnanam. In jnanam, sadhya vyapakatvat. Kruti asadhyatvam is there in drishtanta. Pakshe sadhana avyapakatvat. But in paksha meaning, in the dhyanam, it is not there. And just as we said earlier, that yatra yatra vannihi tatra tatra dhumaha. Wherever fire is, smoke is there. This rule has an upadhi. Upadhi means a distinguishing condition. What is it? Ardrandhana sanyogaha. So there will be smoke only when there is moist firewood. When there is moisture in the firewood, then alone there will be smoke. Otherwise there is no rule that wherever fire is, smoke must be there, because there is a red hot iron ball which is also fire and there is no smoke. So what brings about smoke here? Ardrandhana sanyogaha. That association with moist firewood is what brings about the smoke. So that is called upadhi. Here also, that dhyanam, wherever manasi kriya is, wherever manasatvam is there, kriya is not. Wherever mental thing is there, act is not there. So we say no. Because again, this kruti sadhyatvam or kruti asadhyatvam is the upadhi. So dhyanam, even though it is mental, since it is not kruti sadhyam, therefore it is not kriya. And dhyanam, so jnanam, even though mental, not kruti sadhyam, therefore not kriya. Dhyanam is mental, but kruti sadhyam, therefore it is kriya. Okay. Dhyana kriyam uktva tato vailakshanyam jnanasya sputayati. Bhashyakara, having now described what is dhyana kriya or the act of meditation, then jnana, what is knowledge now? Tataha vailakshanyam jnanasya sputayati. Now Bhashyakara shows vailakshanyam or distinction, that jnana or the knowledge enjoys with reference to karma. Jnanantu, the Bhashyakara says, Jnanantu pramanajanyam pramanancha yatha bhuta vastu vishayam ataha jnanam kartum akartum anyatha va kartum ashakyam kevalam वस्तुतंत्रमेव तत न चोदनातंत्रम नापि पुरुषतंत्रम तस्माद् मानसत्वेपि ज्ञानस्य महद्वैलक्षण्यम्. ज्ञानम तो प्रमाणजन्यम Kriya is what? Chodanajanya. The difference is Kriya or act is Chodanajanyam, is born as a result of a prompting or an impelling factor. Jnanam tu Pramanajanyam, whereas knowledge is born of Pramanam or the valid means of knowledge. Pramanam cha, what is Pramanam? What is called Pramanam? Pramanam cha yatha bhuta vastu vishayam. And what is called Pramanam? Pramakaranam Pramanam. So that which brings about the valid knowledge is called Pramanam or the valid means of knowledge. And therefore, Pramanam is that which has its Vishaya in yatha bhuta vastu. So Pramanam always reveals the thing as it is. That is called Pramanam. A valid means of knowledge is that which reveals the object as it is. Ataha jnanam kartum akartum anyatha va kartum ashakyam. Otherwise, if you had control over this Pramanam, if you had control over your eyes, see, interesting thing is we don't have control over our own eyes or our own ears. Otherwise, we can direct them to hear what we want to hear. Come on, ears, hear this way. I don't want English language, I want French language. Okay. Then the ears may do that, but we don't have control. Because pramanam cha yatha bhuta vastu vishayam, the ears will only reveal the sound as they are and will not change just because you want them to. What am I hearing? Sometimes you say, I don't believe what I hear. You know? Sometimes we hear things which we don't believe or we don't like to believe anyway. That time we wish that this was not like this, it was different. Mom, you don't mean that. Dad, is that what you mean? Is this what you said? Is this what you said? You wonder, you know? And then you don't believe what is being said. Then you wish at that time that things were different. You don't like to believe, but you have to hear because you have no choice. The ears will reveal the things as they are. You have no choice at all. So we have no control over our own means of knowledge. Because Pakshapada, the means of knowledge, has Pakshapada, has preference for the Vastu and not for the Purusha. So Pramanam cha yatha bhuta Vastu Vishayam. Pramanam always makes its Vishaya in the Vastu as it is. Ataha jnanam kartum akartum anyatha va kartum na shakyam. Therefore, I don't have a choice whether to know a thing in one way or other way or not to know. Knowledge will take place and will take place in accordance with the nature of thing, where kevalam vastu tantram, vastu or the object of knowledge that determines the nature of knowledge. Na chodana tantram, not because somebody says, may you know this as a rose, that I will come to know it as a rose. Na chodana tantram. Nabi purusha tantram, that I want to see this flower as an elephant that I can see. Na purusha tantram. Tasmat manasatvavi. Therefore, even though knowledge also is manasam, in as much as it also is a mental mode, jnanasya mahadvailakshanyam. This jnana of the knowledge is far different. Mahadvailakshanyam. There is a great difference between knowledge and action. Even though both are mental, even then both are very greatly different. Well, all right, one passage we could have read here, which again is not very relevant, but Purnanandya says in the last, explaining the earlier sentence, yatha, yasyai devatai, yatha iti, even before that, purvamatmana vritti pratifalita chaitanya avishayatvevi vritti vishayatvam uktam tatra upasamharagram ekam mukha, is an earlier page. That we said that Atma does not become the object of reflected consciousness, but then nevertheless it is revealed by the vritti, so it was said. Then is yatha. Now explaining kinchit dhyanam yatha vastra vastu anusaryapi vastu nirapeksham bhavati. Sometimes meditation is according to the form of the devata which is enjoined or which is described. So you can meditate upon the thing as it is described in the Shastra. Like Hanumanji or Ganesha or other devatas are described as such and such. You know, Kande, Muja, Jane, Usaja, etc. So this description is there and accordingly you may meditate. So meditation is in keeping with the description. So that meditation is in keeping with the nature of the thing, nature of the devata, even then it is not generated by that devata. Vastu nirapeksham means vastu ajanyam. It is not generated by devata, generated by an effort. Tadabhiprayana yasyai devataya iti sandhyam manasa iti cha udaharanadvayam. Those two udaharanas were given that that devata and the sandhya devata must be meditated upon as prescribed or stipulated in the scriptures, so that meditation should be in keeping with the nature of the devata. Kinchit punah dhyanam vastu ananusarya api bhavati. Sometimes dhyanam is not in keeping with the vastu. That illustration will come right away. That in fact there is Shaligrama, you are asked to meditate upon Vishnu. He is just a linga and you meditate upon Lord Shiva. And therefore, what you are meditating upon is not in keeping with the object of meditation. Object that is in front of you, vastu ananusari. Api bhavati. Tad abhiprayana purusha vava iti udaharanam subsequently. Atah dhyanasya vastu anusare tad anusare cha nirbandha. The idea is where meditation is actually upon the object that is in front of you, or meditation is not upon the object in front of you. So whether meditation is in keeping with the actual thing or meditation is not in keeping with the actual thing. Wherever this pratika is involved, like linga is a pratika for Lord Shiva, then meditation will not be in keeping with the nature of thing. But wherever actual thing is involved, like a devata, like Hanuman or Ganesha, of which the description is there, then you may meditate upon the devata as the devata is supposed to be, then the meditation is in keeping with the thing. Doesn't matter how the meditation is, whether meditation is in keeping with the object or is not in keeping with the object, it is nevertheless not generated by the object, and therefore it is vastu nirapeksham. So kruti sadhyatvam tu niyatameva. However, a meditation is necessarily born as a result of an effort and is not born because devata is there. Otherwise, it would have been so nice to meditate upon God. Because God is there, therefore meditation takes place. It would be nice, but it doesn't happen because that meditation requires an effort on my part. Tasya vidhetvam upapadyate. And therefore, wherever Purusha effort is involved, since the fellow may do or not do, therefore instruction is necessary. We tell the child, so do you have now the sacred thread? Yes, Swamiji. So with a great enthusiasm, he underwent the ceremony of the Yajnopavita, etc. And then now, what do you do in the morning? Nothing, But do you chant Gayatri Mantra, do japa? He says, no, Swamiji. You must every morning at least do one mala of Gayatri. When we tell him, he thinks that now Swamiji says, so I should do that. And so he does it, hopefully. So he does it because there is vidheyatvam upapadyate, because vidheyatvam is there. An instruction or directive is required. Pramana jnanasyatu krutiya sadhyataya na vidheyatvam iti samudayartha. Whereas the jnanam which is born as the result of the valid means of knowledge is not the result of an effort, and therefore na vidheyatvam jnanam cannot be enjoined while kriya can be enjoined. That's the difference there. Jnanam tu pramanajanyam, meaning यथार्थ वस्तु विषय प्रत्यक्षादि प्रमाणजन्यत्वात् ज्ञानस्य सर्वदा अनाहार्य परमात्मकत्वमेव ध्यानादीनां तु केषाञ्चित् अनाहार्यत्वं केषाञ्चित् भ्रमत्वं केषाञ्चित् प्रमात्वं संभवति तस्मादपि ज्ञानस्य महद्वैलक्षण्यम् इति भावः. यथार्थ वस्तु विषय प्रत्यक्षादि प्रमाणजन्यत्वात् ज्ञानस्य ज्ञानम सजेस्ट घट ज्ञानम पट ज्ञानम मठ ज्ञानम any ordinary knowledge. Yathartha vastu vishaya pratyakshadi pramanam. So perception is called pratyaksham. So pratyakshadi pramanam, the means of knowledge such as perception, etc. or inference, which has its vishaya in the yathartha vastu like ghata, pata, jnanasya sarvada anaharya pramatmakattvameva. Jnanam is not, so what is it? Dhyanadinam tu keshanchit anaharyatvam. Dhyana or meditation may be in keeping with a thing, that is anaharyatvam. Keshanchit brahmatvam, not in keeping with a thing, meaning you have the linga in front of you and you meditate upon some other form, that is aharyatvam, meaning brahmatvam. So there, that is that dhyanam involves superimposition. So sometimes meditation involves superimposition upon a pratika. Sometimes meditation may not involve a superimposition. You have the Murti of Lord Krishna in front of you and you meditate on that. In that case, no superimposition is involved. Sometimes a Saligrama is there and you may meditate on Lord Krishna, then superimposition is involved. So, Keshanchit Anaharyatvam, when dhyanam or meditation is actually in keeping with the object, then it is called Anaharyam. Keshanchit Brahmatvam, where it is not in keeping with the object in front of you, then it is called Aharyam or Brahmatvam in this case. Keshanchit Pramatvam. And sometimes you meditate upon an actual thing. You meditate upon your teacher, for example, or meditate upon a Mahatma or something like that. So you may meditate in your mind upon this, then the actual person is there. That is called Prama. Prama means that which is verifiable by the actual means of knowledge. You see, when they talk about other devatas, like Ganesha or other devatas, Sandhya or Indra, etc., there is no way that you can verify. The only information you have is from the scriptures. And that is pramanam, all right, but still you cannot yourself see it. So that is one kind of Vishaya. Another kind of Vishaya is where you can see yourself. It is like a person or like a thing, which you can see and you meditate upon that. Suppose Himalayas. You've been to Gangotri or you've been to Gomukh. You meditate on that Gomukh, which you actually seen or which you can see. That would be called Praman, because Gomukh actually is there and you meditate. Some people do that. So Swami, whenever I close my eyes, I see Himalayas in my mind. It is such an impact is there upon the person that you close your eyes and you want to transport yourself in a different atmosphere. From Ahmedabad, you want to go to Gangotri. Then you close your eyes and meditate on those Himalayas and you find yourself in a different. So that dhyana also is there, which is called Prama in this case. So whether dhyana, whatever be the nature of meditation, it is still an act, whereas knowledge is not an act. And therefore, Mahad Vailakshanyam, there is this great disparity or difference between the two. Vyakhyane pratīkamadāya shabdārthamah atah pramanajanyatvad. Okay. So pramatvad iksha. Atah pramatvad should be. So says on page 168, Ratnaprabha, atah pramatvad na chodanatantram na videhe vishayah. Atah pramatvad. So since it is prama, jnanam pramatvad or pramanajanyatvad, that's even better. So prama is pramanajanya anyway, so jnanam is pramanajanyam. Since knowledge is born of pramanam and not born of the purusha, the chodana, na chodanatantram, knowledge is not chodanatantram, meaning not determined by an instruction. Therefore, na videhe vishaya. Therefore, knowledge cannot be the Vishaya or that which is the object of any vidhi or injunction. What is Purushantratvat? So, Jnanasya Pramatra, somebody will say that knowledge also involves a person. If action involves a person, personal effort, knowledge also involves a person. If person is not there, knowledge cannot be there, isn't it? Suppose Ghata, Pata, everything is there. Eyes are also there. Suppose I am not there, being my mind is elsewhere, knowledge will not take place. So knower must be there for the knowledge to take place. How do you say that the knowledge is independent of the knower? You say that the knowledge is independent of the knower. Knowledge is totally determined by object of knowledge and the pramanam. But knower also is involved. How do you say that the knowledge is independent of the knower? It says, Purnanandya says in the second paragraph, second line, Jnanasya pramatru janyatvena Purushatantrata asteva iti ashankya. Knowledge also involves the pramada of the knower. So, since also it is born of the knower, or it is pramada is the prama ashraya, Purushatantrata asteva. Therefore, the involvement of the person is also involved there. In knowledge also, the person is involved. In kriya also, person is involved. So, in both cases, person is involved. So why not we say that dhyanam and jnanam are in the same category? This person is involved, all right, but the involvement is of a different nature. In one case, person is involved as the one making an effort. In the other case, person is involved merely as the ashraya, the locus of knowledge. That's all. And that is the difference in involvement. So you see, you should know. Otherwise it looks very similar. But then the involvement is different. And this difference should be well understood. Otherwise meditation is fine, but some people believe that go and meditate, And so meditation seems to bring about the knowledge or whatever experience or something. But understand, meditation involves effort. Therefore meditation involves your own limitation. Meditation involves a limitation of knowledge also, because you can meditate upon what you know. You cannot meditate upon something that you do not know. In which case, what you meditate upon, your meditation is going to involve the limitation of your knowledge. And is going to involve also the limitation of your effort. And therefore, meditation is not knowledge. Meditation is fine for what it is, but it is not knowledge. That's the idea here. Okay, jnanasya pramatrujanyattvena purushatantrata astyeva. Somebody may say that even in jnanam also, why not say that the will of the person is involved? Says, ashankya vigraha pratipadakadvara pariharti. So Ratnaprabha explains that expression, purushatantratvat. What is meant by purushatantratvat? Says Ratnaprabha, purusha kritidvara tantram. Tantram means hetuhu. Yasya tat purushatantram. Where purusha or the person becomes hetu or the cause, kritidvara. Not merely by being there, but by an effort. So purushatantram means where the person becomes the cause of accomplishment of something as a result of his effort. In knowledge also the person is the cause, all right, but without his effort. In action the person is cause with effort. Therefore, krutidvara tantram, tantram is hetuhu, yasya tat purushatantram. That dhyanam or the kriya is where the purusha becomes a hetu. Purusha becomes the cause by his effort. Tasmat vastu avyabhicharat pumstantratvacha dhyanat jnanasya mahan bhedha ityartha. Tasmad vastu avyabhicharat. Apumstantratva. Okay. Vastu avyabhicharat. Since dhyanam is in keeping with the vastu and not other than the vastu, whereas jnanam can be independent of the vastu. Vastu can be one and you can meditate on something else. Apumstantratvacha. And since knowledge does not involve the effort of the person or will of the person, dhyanat jnanasya mahan vedaha. Therefore, jnanam is very greatly different from dhyanam. That's the difference here. Jnanasya pramadrujanyatvevi kriti sadhyatva bhavat na purushatantrata iti bhavaha. Even though jnanasya pramadrujanyatve, even though jnana is born of the pramada of the knower, kriti sadhyatva bhavat, no effort of the knower is involved there. Therefore, na purushatantrata. Therefore, jnana is not purushatantram iti bhavaha. Pratikamādāya arthamah tasmāditi. So tasmād vastu avyabhichara. Tasmād means what? Tasmād is from the bhashya. Tasmād means what? Vastu avyabhicharat. Apumstantratvacha. Manasatvebi dhyanasya mahadvailakshanyam. Dhyana jnanasya mahan bheda ityartha. That same sentence is explained by Ratnaprabha in this manner. Now, Bhedameva drishtantantarenaha. That same bheda that the dhyanam has from jnanam is illustrated again by another drishtanta, another illustration. Yathacha, this is Bhashyakara. Yathacha purusho vava gautama agnihi yosha vava gautama Agnihi iti atra yoshit purushayoho agnibuddhihi manasi bhavati kevala chodana janyatvad kriya eva sa purushatantracha. He gives another illustration in Chandogya and elsewhere. There is what we call Panchagni Vidya. where there are 5 fires, tasmad agnihi samido yasya surya, सोमात् पर्जन्य है ओषधयः पृथिव्याम पुमामृतः सिंचति योषितायाम बह्वीः प्रजाः पुरुषात् संप्रसूताः. As Mundakopanishad says, तस्मात् अग्निः, from Brahman is born these heavens. Samido yasya surya, of which the sun happens to be the samid, meaning the fire. Somat parjanya, and then that samid, the surya is offered, and from that action of surya and chandra is born parjanya. So that becomes the first fire. Then parjanya becomes second fire. Oshadayah prasivyam. Parjanya means the vrishti or the rain. So that is sacrificed, and then oshadayah, all the vegetation is born. Then that becomes again the fire. And pumanretas sinchati. Then when the oshadis are eaten, that's the third fire. When that is converted into what we call the retas, and pumanretas sinchati yoshitayam, then yoshit becomes another, purusha becomes the fourth fire, yoshit means woman becomes the fifth fire, and that's how the prajas are born. This is a description. And one is asked to meditate upon this whole universal fire, means yajna. The whole Vaishvik yajna, or the universal cosmic sacrifice is going on, and how the whole universe is run because of this cosmic sacrifice. So here at every step you are asked to look upon Parjanya as fire. Or you asked to look upon the Purusha as fire. Or woman as fire. So in this manner. In fact, there is no fireness there. Fire is something else. But still you look upon that as fire because some similarity is there, because a sacrifice is involved there. So Purusho Vava Gautama Agnihi. Hey Gautama, Purusho Vava Agnihi. This Purusha is Agni of the fire. Yosha Vava Gautama Agnihi. Hey Gautama, Yosha means the woman is Agni. Iti atra Yoshit Purushayoho. In these and similar instructions, in the woman or in a person, Purusha means a man, Agni Buddhi Manasi Bhavati. When you look upon them as fire, then what? That is purely your mental projection, that is Manasi Bhavati. Kevala Chodana Jinyatvat. Because it is born purely out of instruction, Chodana. That may you look upon Parjanya as fire, may you look upon Purusha as fire, may you look upon Yoshit as fire, and that is how you look upon that. So Kevala Chodana Jinyatvat. This visualization or looking upon a given thing as fire here is purely born of instruction of the Shruti. Kriya evasa Purusha Tantra cha. And then whether to do it or not, or how to do it, is dependent upon the person, and therefore Kriya Chodana Janyatvam is there, and Purusha Tantratvam is there. Therefore, this is all Kriya. This Dhyanam is Kriya and not knowledge. Says Abhed Asatvepi Viditah Dhyanam Kartum Shakyam Na Jnanam Ityartha. Abhed Asatvepi. So, in Dhyanam, in Jnanam, the knowledge always is in keeping with the object of knowledge. In meditation, that is not necessary. Even though the mental, what you visualize in your mind, is different from what is in front of you. Abheda asatvepi, even though that abheda or the non-duality is not there, that means the dhyanam is different from the object of meditation. Then also, viditah dhyanam kartum shakyam. You can still meditate upon a thing, or you can still look upon a given thing in a different way, because you are asked to do that.